Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Obviously, a very hot topic this year within Call of Duty in general has been open matchmaking and skill-based matchmaking. Obviously, it was a big deal back during the beta when out of nowhere, they announced they were introducing open matchmaking with minimal consideration when it comes to skill in the overall matchmaking experience. And back then, it was largely regarded as an instantaneous change. Everyone was easily able to pick up that their matches felt way better in terms of connection quality and stability. They were finding games faster. It was a great thing then. They then announced that it was going to be coming at launch to Black Ops 7, and for the first few days you could definitely see that there was some consistency. But then things started to get a little bit weird, and that caused a lot of hesitancy and concern in the community about whether or not open matchmaking was actually being honest about what it was supposed to do. The exclusive ace, as we just covered in a video yesterday, actually went through and did a small little sample size of a test with his main account and his second account, which is basically a bot account for testing. And he showed in, again, a very small sample size that there was an actual difference in time to connect to a match, an actual ping in a match when he was playing on his main account where it took longer to connect to a game and he was facing higher pings versus his bot account, which got into matches faster and typically had lower pings. Now, it was just a small sample size, but it did kind of indicate what the community was feeling and what the community sentiment was. A little bit of confirmation bias for sure, but there was numbers that pointed towards something being a little bit weird. And surprisingly enough, the devs have already responded to these claims that open matchmaking is not being truthful and is not being honest about what's being factored in the overall matchmaking experience. And Ace yesterday posted this surprise response saying, an update on yesterday's video regarding matchmaking in Black Ops 7. I've been in contact with Treyarch, which kind of surprises me given that it was a holiday, and they've been looking into the matches I was testing on my accounts. They've reiterated to me that nothing has changed with the matchmaking at all compared to the open matchmaking in the beta, saying it is the exact same system that was used in the beta, where everyone pretty much agreed that it felt noticeably different and connection quality was way better when skill was not being the priority factor in the matchmaking experience. However, they stated that the player demographics and playlist selections are very different in the full build versus the beta. So what this could mean as far as the matchmaking experience goes is obviously during the open beta, the game was completely accessible for free. Anyone could go through and download it during then. They didn't have to buy the full $70, $80, $90 version of Black Ops 7 to play the game like they do now. There was also only like 4 or 5 playlist options back there in the beta. I forget what the exact number was, but it wasn't what it is now where you have way more quick play options. You have a couple of standard things. You got open matchmaking stuff like your core mosh pit, you've got Nuketown 24/7, whatever the case is, small map mosh pit. Now there's more to play now that it's obviously the full game, which means that potentially now a smaller player base, because it's a paid experience, it's not completely free for everyone, a smaller player base is being split more amongst more playlists and more modes, which ultimately means that there are going to be, in theory, less people to find in a match in any given mode. Now, time of day is going to factor into this. Your location, whether you're playing solo versus a party, is going to factor into this. So there's a lot going on in play here, but it is actually lining up with what would make sense given the state of the game now versus what it was during the open beta. Ace goes on to say, so the discrepancy that many of us have had with our experience in the beta versus launch is most likely due to these factors. This is something I noted in the video as a potential reason for this, and I believe that it's the case after discussing things with them. I am hoping to see something official come out after the Thanksgiving break, so you don't have to just take my word for it, but time is going to tell. I'm really curious to see if we do get some kind of response to this rather than just Ace relaying information from his personal conversations with the devs, because Treyarch is kind of stuck here between a rock and a hard place, because no matter what they say, it's not necessarily going to change the public opinion here, unfortunately, because they've said this entire time that nothing has changed with the matchmaking, and yet here we are still talking about how something doesn't feel right multiple weeks into launch. So if they come out again and just say, hey, guys, nothing's changed since the beta, you're going to have a select chunk of people who are going to be hesitant to believe that, and rightfully so. COD's track record is not great, and they don't have a lot of trust with their word now. But Treyarch's not just going to straight up lie and say, yeah, guys, we changed it to make it worse, because if that's not the case, why would they say that, right? So basically, no matter what Treyarch says here, unless they're just straight up giving open raw data and like full API data, it's going to be basically impossible to have people believe them because they're just going to go off of their feels and what they believe to be true at this point, considering they've already said nothing's changed and we're still talking about the same situation and the same concerns going on with the overall matchmaking experience. Ace is not the only source, though, that's talked about being told the matchmaking is still open and it's not factoring in skill as much as people think. Charlie Intel ended up posting about this as well, since obviously it's pretty big news, and Keshav from Charlie Intel ended up saying, I will also say, I have been told multiple times that nothing has changed with open matchmaking since the beta. They did not change anything in the back end. So it is the exact same matchmaking system as the beta, now just with a slightly more limited player pool and more playlists to spread those players across, also more modes with endgame and zombies and everything going on there. There's also even more information that says they haven't changed anything. In response to Keshav's tweet, the Ghost of Hope, another phenomenal source for information, says, yeah, I've heard the same, but like, how do you even go about addressing these things as Treyarch besides saying it's the same, which is kind of what I just mentioned there. Like, Treyarch can come out and say, hey, yes, we've heard your concerns about the matchmaking, but we haven't changed anything. Skill is not being the most considered here. It's still being minimally considered, and open matchmaking is doing what it's supposed to do, just like it did back during the beta. Except you go in and you feel the games and you're like, wait a second, the connection feels a little bit iffy. These guys seem really sweaty. Like, this is the same experience I had last year in Black Ops 6 when there was hard skill-based matchmaking. It's going to be tough to sway some opinions there, despite the fact that they could fully be telling the truth here, and it seems like they are. Keshav also mentions, people don't want to believe them, but I have heard from non-PR folks, so these are just general developers that have no reason to lie about what's going on at the matchmaking, or no reason to try and hype it up in some super exciting, enticing way. Is PR folks saying nothing's changed and no one is trying to rug pull anything. It's just the player base at the beta to today is not the same. You also kind of have to factor in that people who are actively buying Call of Duty right now, especially this year of all years where the hype is really down, there's maybe not as much of a casual reach this year as opposed to years past. The general player base is probably just better at Call of Duty than it was when there was open matchmaking or classic matchmaking in COD before the MW 2019 era in the skill-based matchmaking era. We've basically been trained, whether you're a good player, an average player, or a slightly below average player, basically if you're anyone outside of the ultra protected bracket, which has always existed in COD, pre-skill-based matchmaking era, in the skill-based matchmaking era, in the current era, there's always been that protected bracket, but basically anyone outside of that has been trained to have to play more and more and more competitively over the course of the last few years since MW 2019. So there's a large chance that even with open matchmaking fully functioning as intended here, that the general player base is just better at the game. We have less skill gaps in a lot of situations, and people are just better at playing Call of Duty, so that factors into it as well. But that is the official response from Call of Duty and from Treyarch, at least as official as we can have it right now, in terms of what's actually going on with open matchmaking and why we're seeing some slight differences between the beta experience and the full launch experience. I will say I am curious for Warzone, because they did just confirm Warzone is going to have the full open matchmaking experience as well. The player base there is probably going to be a little bit larger than in Black Ops 7 multiplayer and whatnot, because it is free to play. So I'm really curious to see if those quick queue times go back up and you're back to getting instant matches, although obviously you're filling much larger player pools between Resurgence and Battle Royale than you would a 12-person multiplayer match or something. Then also what the general player base skill level is like, if it still feels super sweaty, if the ping and connection there is still going to be inconsistent between games, and what's going to be going on there. So time is going to tell here. We'll know for sure in the next couple of weeks what exactly is going on there, but that's going to wrap things up for this one. I was definitely surprised to already see some kind of response here from the devs in regards to all this drama going on with skill-based matchmaking. But hey, if you guys enjoyed the video, you found the information helpful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. It's always seriously appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, you want to ensure you're always in the know for everything going on in COD, this is the place to be. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.